Good day and welcome to On the Beat in Westchester, right here on WestchesterTalkRadio.com. I'm John Marino, and we are produced by Sharc, S-H-A-R-C. That's Sharc with a C, not a K, Sharc Creative, and we are made possible by our good friends over at Entergy, the Indian Point Energy Center in Buchanan. They promise to support our communities right through April of 2021. Also by Lipolis Electric at Lipolis. Well, they never leave you in the dark, so don't be left in the dark. Get Lipolis. And by Hightower Westchester. At Hightower, they manage our wealth to a fiduciary standard. Catch all of our Westchester, Putnam, Dutchess, and Fairfield County talk radio programming on our YouTube channel, Sharc Creative YouTube. We are joined here today at WestchesterTalkRadio.com by a man I like to call the esteemed dean of the Westchester scene, John Bailey. John Bailey is the publisher and editor of the White Plains CitizenNet Reporter. Find it online at WPCNR.com. John Bailey, we thank you for joining us here on Westchester Talk Radio. Great to talk to you again, old friend. How are you?
Yes, I'm delighted to be here. I'm very pleased at the invitation. Thank you.
Now, John, here we are in September. Labor Day has come and gone. It is time to reopen schools in whatever way, shape, manner, or fashion or form that happens to be in each locality across the state of New York. Per Governor Cuomo's edict of you figure out a plan locally, regardless of where you are. The state is not going to step in. You have to be the one to do it. What do you see?
Well, what do I see? Cross your fingers. Cross your fingers, because here in Westchester County, we are not testing students before they come in. We're not testing teachers before they come in, and because the school districts aren't being supplied with the tests, and so therefore everybody's coming in as they are tomorrow. And there's also in White Plains, particularly, we're having their students are coming in Thursday. Tomorrow the teachers arrive for the pre-opening day, and on the next day the students arrive. The buses will go out, and we shall see what we shall see. And unfortunately, it's going to be a combination of classroom and COVID, classroom and at-home learning, remote learning, and the situation has been worked out very detailed by the superintendent of schools. They think they're ready, and I'll be interviewing him tomorrow in a pre-opening pep talk. And
now, does this seem to be this plan here? You talk about it in White Plains. Does it seem to vary across the county from north to south, or maybe a plan in, let's say, a more disadvantaged area might be very different than a plan in a place like Somers, which is a bit more affluent?
Well, I would think so. On the other hand, we have no idea how many parents have chosen to remote learn for their kids, and no idea what the percentage is. And so and whether or not this will really stress out the teachers. Monday and Tuesday and Thursday and Friday are in-school days, and then they alternate and remote learn on the days that they are not going into class. It's very tricky. In fact, that's why I'm interviewing them, to see exactly how this works.
How do school systems around the county think they can pull off a plan like this without any real testing based upon what's happened? How do we know who a carrier might be?
That is a very good question. And the superintendent, Joseph Ricca, did tell me 2 weeks ago that they do not have the ability to test in the schools if they see a student with symptoms after they arrive, after a few days. And this is a real problem. I understand they will send the student home and tell them, the parent, to get them tested. Now the parent then has to contact the county health department, and the county health department, instead of working them into a queue right to a center or anywhere in the county, where they just give them a list. They give them a list of stores that or medical concerns that make the tests. Now we don't know whether it's free or not, or whether they have to pay for it. And to me, the health department should be doing this. They should be doing it. They should be scheduling it, trafficking it. Always what happens.
And what happens if a parent says, well, I'm not going to send my kid to be tested. I'm going to show up tomorrow at White Plains Middle School, for example, with my kid, and my kid has to go to school because I say so. You have to let my kid in. You can't tell me that my kid might have COVID.
You ask a good question. I don't know what they're going to do. Yeah. How many are going to do that?
Yeah.
Look, for example, I have a sniffle occasionally. I think it's allergic. Is that a symptom? You know, it's really a lot of pressure letting the kids.
It's a real tricky situation. No doubt about that.
I hadn't even thought of that. But if you have allergies, this is a huge allergy season right now because of all the damp weather and the heat. Pollen is all over the place, and so they can't mistake that. And also on the health report, the health papers, the parents have to always furnish. Did they ask, has your child been tested? We don't know. Did they require it for the parents before school? In New York City, supposedly, they're doing that as part of the United Federation of Teachers agreement with de Blasio. But we'll see whether they actually do it or not. That is a tremendous risk in New York City.
Okay, tremendous so think risk. About this now. My kid might have COVID, maybe not. That's what the school tells me. They need him to be tested. I have to go to work. What do I do with my kid? Got to put him in school. He's got to be somewhere. You have to let my kid in. I have to go to work. If I don't go to work, I can't send my kid to any school.
You know, there's not a lot of information on that. Perhaps the schools are actually providing it, but the problem is schools now communicate with only parents directly, and it's basically suppressing information because if the parent doesn't get it, the parent doesn't know, or if the parent doesn't pay attention to it, they don't know. And
right, and this puts the parents, I think, in the toughest situation. They want what's best for their kids, and yet in a lot of households, you have one breadwinner, and that bread has to be one.
Yes, but I mean, this is key. That's one of the things that has probably been being worked out the last few weeks. But we don't know what that workout is. At least I don't. They haven't. I mean, I'm number one news source in White Plains. Nobody reads the journal news. The circulation is down so far that they are concentrating their advertising up in Rockland. So people aren't reading it. You know, and so you can't get the usual print outlets to do it.
Testing, or at least putting a plan together here to test and to do other things too.
Well, in White Plains, at this point, we do not expect them to be able to COVID test in the schools. They don't have the tests. And so when you don't have the tests, you can't test. But I cannot believe that the county cannot get tests to every school in the county if they didn't want to. The governor, I feel, has dropped the ball on providing testing down here in the most populous area of the state, where the schools are very populated, lots of population, really at the mercy of an outbreak if they don't immediately find that. Look at it. He wants 3%, right, John? 3% is the level that you have to shut down a school. Now, whether or not schools will do this on an individual basis, or whether the Mid-Hudson region, which is what our region is, has to average the 3%. That is not clear. But really, if you have 3% of the 3,600 White Plains middle and high school students, where the real risk is, where they're going from class to class, that is 105 students. That's not many out of 3,600.
No.
So if you use that measure, White Plains would have to shut down those two systems.
Okay, so let's say I'm the superintendent of a school system and I have schools spread out within my system, like schools are in White Plains, like they are in New Rochelle, for example. I have 46 kids in one school who are testing positive today, and I have 60 more, and that gets me over the threshold barely where my school, the system has to be shut down. I'll come back to you and say, well, you know what? It's not all in one building. There are some spread here and some spread here. Why do I have to shut every building down? Let's just shut down the buildings where
you have nailed it. You have nailed the problem. They are not being told what to do. The governor has said, if you top 3% in any one school, you got to close that. He hasn't said that. He says that's the guideline, but he hasn't offered the particulars. He is basically not providing, perhaps the only area where he has not provided decisive leadership, what he knows is right.
Proper guidance, as they say nowadays.
Yes, out of an abundance of caution. That is the expression, John.
Well, I have a feeling that abundance of caution is going to be tested soon. Then you get into the issue of, if every kid has to work from home, which I think they should right now, is every child across this state equipped with what they need, a laptop, an iPad? If so, why not? And I'll say this again, I've said it before, I think the state education department has a responsibility to make sure every child in this state is equipped to work and learn from home as each and every child needs individually.
Wow, it is a real problem. How are they going to analyze whether the changes they've made to remote learning are working or not? And in the school where my daughter teaches, they haven't even got their class plans yet.
Right.
Down in New York City.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is a dropped ball by the New York City education chancellor. He's been behind, but de Blasio can't make decisions. I mean, I fear for the New York City kids. I really do.
I spoke a few weeks ago to County Legislator Chris Johnson of Yonkers, and I proposed what the state should do and make sure every kid is equipped the right way. And Chris Johnson said, not only that, you have the problem then of every area not being equipped to handle Wi-Fi. And that's another issue with all of this, that I think all of our leaders and lawmakers had an opportunity. They had a number of months to think this out, and yet that thought process seems to be stuck in neutral.
Wi-Fi, I don't see why that has not been more explored. I do not understand why the educational television access channels across the state haven't been used or even talked about to provide television repeats of classrooms, etc. Perhaps it was just too much to involve that. But as far as equipment goes, it's really a question. We are told that White Plains can provide it all locally because they've been ahead of this since the spring on remote learning and really started working on revamping it in July and August. And so if anybody is ready, it's White Plains. So if our remote learning isn't working, I think everybody else is in trouble.
Yeah. And I look at what happened a couple of weeks ago, a story I came across that a group called Somos in New York City said they could pretty much test every kid every day. And they offered this to Mayor de Blasio 2-3 months ago, this opportunity to sign on for this. The mayor never responded. About 10 days ago, he finally responded and they spoke and really no action taken. I just think across this state, we're dealing with this COVID-19 pandemic now for how long? 6 months, right? They had an opportunity to think ahead to the fall, to now when it comes to school and plan something out. Instead, everything is stuck in neutral. And as you pointed out, it seems like a lot of people dropped this ball along the way. And that moves us to the issue of bus transportation monitors in the middle of all this. Where do we stand on that today?
Well, it was what we usually had bus monitors in White Plains. I don't know if they're going to have them on all the buses, but how is the bus driver going to control the space and social distancing and drive the bus if he doesn't have a monitor to do that?
This is On the Beat in Westchester. John Bailey from the White Plains CitizenNet Reporter, and catch his work, whiteplainscitizenetreporter.com, WPCNR.com. We are presented by, made possible by here at Westchester Talk Radio, produced by Sharc, S-H-A-R-C, Sharc with a C, not a K, Creative, made possible by our good friends at Entergy, the Indian Point Energy Center in Buchanan. They promise to support our communities right through April of 2021. Also by here, Park Sterling Realty of Bronxville, White Plains Hospital. Special thanks to all of our heroes, White Plains Hospital, all they've done throughout this pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic of 2020. Also, too, we say thank you to Wartburg Healthcare and Rehabilitation in Mount Vernon, and also here, again, a special thanks to other people who make possible what we do here at Westchester Talk Radio, westchestertalkradio.com. Thank you, one and all. Lapolis Electric, you're never left in the dark at Lapolis, and also to Hightower Westchester. At Hightower, they manage your wealth too, a fiduciary standard. John Bailey, now we move over to the truly political side of what's happening here in Westchester County. Reginald Lafayette, the head of the Westchester Democratic Party, who happens to be an elections commissioner in Westchester as well, has decided to step away from party leadership. He stays on as an elections commissioner. Must point out the Republican elections commissioner and the head of the Republican Party, Doug Colty, is also a commissioner besides heading up the party as well, too. How does that work together here in Westchester, where that does not seem to be the norm in most areas around the rest of this country?
Yeah. This is an amazing decision by Mr. Lafayette, since he has basically been the kingpin of who runs and who does not in the Democratic Party in Westchester County, and has also, handled a lot of cases, making it difficult to primary, candidates that want to challenge party selections. And he will still be able to do that as elections commissioner. I thought that rather than him stepping down, he would need to perhaps leave the commissionerships, in fact, both commissioners, after this rather horrible job on primary absentee ballots. Perhaps they wanted to find another line of work, because the pressure is really on this fall to handle those absentees, of which there will be many more. And my feeling is that that's what it should have been looked at, but the county isn't going to do that, because Mr. Lafayette and Mr. Colty have been doing it for so long. And who would you appoint to the Board of Commissioners? But I mean, that is an issue that has to be addressed.
You've alluded to how candidates could be affected by this change here at this time, so close to an election. What spurred or prompted, do you think, Reginald Lafayette to make this move so close to the election now?
Well, it has to be a power stroke. Either they want someone more up county,
More up county.
Yes, to have a say in candidacy.
And he's based in Mount Vernon.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
Or they wanted someone more directly from Yonkers, so that the Yonker power base can continue.
All right, so we're going from up county, from Mount Vernon to up county to Yonkers.
Yeah. Well, the point is, up county is it's a much whiter population.
Yeah.
And
right.
The southern part of the county, to be blunt about it, and there have been a lot of leanings towards people from the southern part of the county.
Okay, up north in the county, a lot more affluent. Here's what I'm not following.
Affluence, but we have to assume that there are some minorities that are affluent up there.
Yeah, I'm just talking about geography, regardless of who lives in any particular place.
Yes,
I'm looking at the geography of all this. You're going from Mount Vernon to up county, then you come back down maybe right next door to Yonkers. Well, and where do we go next? To Croton and come back to New Rochelle. It's a zigzag that doesn't seem to have a real game plan to it.
Yes, and the woman from Greenberg that is left in the primary with the fellow up north, whose name I forget. I mean, this gives you a fact that if they are running for it, that means you're going to the middle part of county, Greenberg, the largest town in the county. If she wins it, that will be quite a change. And if the fellow from up north wins it, they will have much more say than who runs on the Democratic ticket.
Does this set up a real power struggle within the base of the party across the county now?
I think so. I think that's what it says to me. I mean, Lafayette has been, as I say, the kingpin for, 20 years?
Long
The
time.
only reason somebody leaves is because he feels he may not be able to win. He doesn't get paid for that job, the county Democratic chairman, and he probably does not need to. Remember, he may be real upset because when they switched voting machines a couple of years ago, he did a great job on that. It worked. They had to retrain everybody, and last year when they had that problem also, he did a very good job on it. But then this year with the primary, they didn't give him any help. Of course, he didn't ask for any, but the county should have said, hey, we can do this for you. And they didn't. So they washed their hands of it. That's what they appear to be doing on this COVID testing. They're washing their hands on the actual nuts and bolts.
One key race coming up. We got a key race coming up in the northern part of the county for state senate. The 40th seat, once held by Republican Terrence Murphy a few years back, past few years, held by former county legislator Pete Harcum. Pete Harcum, the state senator in the 40th district. He's a Democrat. He's being challenged by one-time county executive, a Republican, Rob Astorino, 2 months before Election Day or thereabouts. How does this race shape up at the moment?
Yes, sports radio must not be doing well, you know.
Rob has a very varied background, and disclosure here, Rob and I worked together for many years at WFAS Radio in Rye Plains. He's a good friend, no doubt about that. But yet here we take a look at everything the way it is, and it is, I think, a real, in my mind, an almost too close to call race at this time, because you have two longtime public servants who have about an equal amount of name notoriety, name recognition, both countywide and locally where this race is being held.
Yeah, well, I mean, Harcum is actually campaigning, so he's really worried. And Astorino is doing the usual hard-hitting saving on taxes campaign, and he's really hit Harcum hard on inaction on some of the issues, and Harcum is coming back. It's interesting because that district I feel is heavily Republican, and Harcum won, or was he appointed? No, he wasn't. He was elected to that.
Not that I can remember. He won the election last time.
That's right. Right. But that was an easy election for him. He had no real competition. Now this Astorino, this is Astorino's last hurrah to be considered to run for governor. He has to win this, otherwise he's dead politically.
And this is Rob's home base, his area. He grew up in Thornwood, attended Westlake High School. So I do think that gives him the advantage from that standpoint there. So you have Pete Harcum, who once headed up the county board on the Democratic side. He's got the name recognition too. But when you're taking on somebody in their home area, what is their home base? I think the guy with the last at bat, the home team, has a little bit of an advantage. At least that's the way I look at things, to use a sports analogy here, putting it together with politics. We are joined by John Bailey here, WestchesterTalkRadio.com. Brought to you by, made possible by our good friends at Entergy, the Indian Point Energy Center in Buchanan. They promise to support our communities through April of 2021. And Michael Labriola, landscape design and construction. John Bailey, White Plains CitizenNet Reporter.com, the publisher and editor of, and you can catch John's work online, WPCNR.com. And Let's move over now to here on the beat in Westchester with John Bailey to key question here, I think. How did we manage all the summer of 2020 without Rye Playland? No rides to flip me upside down this year.
Right. Well, you did that. You had that problem because of the lawsuit that the county filed against the Standard Amusements to get out of the contract, and then Standard Amusements sued them, and that has been roosting in the bankruptcy court. And he was supposed to have a meeting. County Executive Latimer was supposed to have a meeting a couple of weeks ago with Standard Amusements, but we have heard nothing from that meeting. My guess is the county, because they made an ill-advised move in trying to dump Standard, now has to either settle with Standard or cook up a deal that keeps them in it. Now, I feel that Standard wants to wash their hands of this whole thing because they don't think it's viable. I mean, the attendance wasn't that great last year, and it certainly isn't going to be good this year. But now the problem is, can that park, which you need over $100 million in repairs, which the county has to eat now because Standard is out of the picture, or maybe this is a problem for the county. Where are they going to get that?
This issue here, the Rye Playland issue, lasted for so long, going back 5-6 years?
Because the more you string it out, the less you had, the more time you have to delay a decision.
The more you string it out,
in other words,
the more time you have to delay a decision. I like that philosophy, that analogy.
Yes, that's right. That's what county government has done for years. That's what city governments do for years. I mean, the FASNY, a good example.
We're going to go into that. FASNY, the French American School of New York, for old time's sake, an issue John and I would tackle a few years back in a different media venue. We did it for a couple of years, and this went on. John and I would be together weekly, and we talked about this pretty much lead story every week for a couple of years back in 2014, 2015. The French American School of New York. Where does that stand today over by Gedney Way in White Plains?
We await a court date for which the appellate court in Brooklyn will consider the case. And that has been going on now for about 6 or 7 months this way. They may not have a court date. Well, actually, it's almost election day. It's gone over almost another year without an argument date.
And how many years has this case gone on? Maybe
this
10?
is year 11. Remember, this happened in, 2011. So this is almost 11 years now.
All right. So maybe we should have a law passed saying that any lawsuit or issue that comes before a judge in court has a certain amount of time, a finite amount of time to be settled and decided, a reasonable amount of time. I don't think 11 years is reasonable. I think we've passed the reasonable point by probably the time you and I first talked about it in 2014. Should have been time's up by then.
Well, they can't sell the property, which FASNY, French American School of New York, wants to do. It's been on the market because there was this lawsuit hanging over it. And if the judges down in the appellate court find in favor of Gedney that the statutes back to 25 were applicable here, it is even less valuable to them.
Now, with the real estate market going up the way it has during this COVID pandemic, some might say, string this out because the real estate values might go up here and we can get more money for it.
Well, I mean, you can't count on that. Who knew there would be this sudden real estate boom over the last 2 months?
But we could have a big drop, too, just like that, like we did back in 2008.
Well, one realtor in White Plains was telling me just the other day, everything is really going great. Mortgages you can get at almost 2.5%, but you have to get it. Now, what do you have to do? The prices of the bottom market homes to get into White Plains are going up, which means your down payment has to go up. And I still think they require at least 25 to 30% to get a mortgage at say you have $100,000 to put down on a $400,000 or $500,000 house. That is a huge mortgage.
I have a feeling, John, the old song from the 60s, Zager and Evans, in the year 2525. I have a feeling that in the year 2025, at least, we'll still be talking about FASNY, the French-American School of New York, and might still have this case in court. I wouldn't be surprised at that point.
Yeah, well, let's say the appellate court throws it out. Will they appeal up to the court?
Yeah, I want to appeal. Throw it out. Yes. Go ahead. I'll be back tomorrow.
They could still do that.
Yeah.
It's out of there. The problem is that the city of White Plains, if they want to start moving this property, has to buy FASNY out. Buy the property for the city.
So why doesn't the city just do that then? That seems to be a simple solution. I'm sure the city has the money to do that.
Well, because the neighborhood, originally did not want a huge swim complex and golf course set up there.
That's the Gedney Association, correct?
Yes, they fought that, and that resulted in it being rejected. When Adam Bradley had engineered that deal, because they didn't like Adam Bradley. When he was running through his marriage troubles, and it's interesting to me. Had the city done that, you would never have all this. The city could have, limited the size, but Common Council, in their infinite stupidity, didn't take this deal and control the situation. Instead, now White Plains' reputation for being developer friendly is shot forever. Because
all right, so I leave you with this thought: what comes or happens first? We get a resolution to the FASNY case, or Godot finally arrives?
Look,
I got my money on Godot, I think, on this one.
Yeah, right. Las Vegas should have taken book on this. They really should.
The wait for Godot.
What would be the over and under?
The wait for Godot, we predict, will end before the wait for resolution of the FASNY White Plains case finally comes to an end, whenever.
Well, now that we have said that a decision will come down tomorrow.
It'll come tomorrow. Maybe that's
always what happens.
To make a decision, or both sides need to get together and put a deal together and get this finally brought to an end.
Well, this is symptomatic of our times. There is no compromise. There's no,
no give and take.
That's right. No give and take, and particularly the Gedney Association should have made some sort of effort. Say, look, we can deal with houses on this property in that section, which would help the neighborhood, but forget this crazy environmental thing. Who needs that? You really don't.
It just seems like we live in times now where every side has to have their own way. It's either my way or no way, and that's not the way to get a deal done. John Bailey, we thank you for joining us here today on Westchester Talk Radio, westchestertalkradio.com. Great to talk to you again. Let's do this again. We are produced by Sharc Creative.
I would love to do that. Thank you.
Publisher and editor of White Plains CitizenNet Reporter.com, WPCNR.com. White Plains CitizenNet Reporter. You can go online, just type in WPCNR.com. You catch all of John's work, his coverage of White Plains, the White Plains area, and the entire county of Westchester. John, we thank you again. We are made possible here on Westchester Talk Radio, again produced by Sharc with a C, not a K, Creative, by our good friends at Entergy, the Indian Point Energy Center, supporting our communities right through April of 2021. Lipolis Electric at Lipolis. Yes, get Lipolis, because with Lipolis, you'll never be left in the dark. By Hightower Westchester. At Hightower, they manage their wealth to a fiduciary standard. By Michael Labriola, landscape design and construction. Also by our good friends at Park Sterling Realty in Bronxville. And we also say thank you to our good friends at White Plains Hospital. At White Plains Hospital, we thank you for all you've done at White Plains Hospital throughout this COVID-19 pandemic. And also by Wartburg Rehabilitation over in Mount Vernon. Wartburg Healthcare and Rehabilitation in Mount Vernon. I'm John Marino, and we are Westchester Talk Radio, westchestertalkradio.com. Catch all of our Westchester, Putnam, Dutchess, and Fairfield County talk radio programming on our YouTube channel, Sharc Creative YouTube.